John Cooney, Nicole, loads of people here. Okay, look, guys, we'll crack into it now. I think there's quite a few people here now. So look, thank you all for joining. I think this is number 5 in the series. We're kind of losing track now. We've kind of just lost the run of ourselves, but it's been going really well, and we're extremely excited to be joined by none other than our Vice Commodore Conor O'Regan tonight. So just before we get into it, just to obviously remind everybody, these talks have been organized by the incredible under 25 and under 30 committees. So we have a great group working behind the scenes on all things sailing for the under 30s, and obviously the under 25s as well, including these talks. So we're glad you could all be here to join us. This was meant to be the final week, but we've had another one added on to next week there. So this is now the penultimate week. So we have another one next week, which I'll tell you all about. And yeah, then just as we go, guys, if you have any questions, if you just want to put them down in the chat function at the bottom, we will ask them as we go, and we'll kind of get a bit of Q&A going as we go, and then obviously at the end we'll have time for questions as well, because this is going to be a pretty interesting story we're about to hear. So I'm sure everyone will have lots of questions. But yeah, look, we'll crack into it. As I said, look, we have Conor O'Regan with us. Conor, thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, no, great. Thanks, Will, and thanks for the introduction. And look, it's a great group, the under 25, under 30s in the club, and absolutely delighted to support them. And look, I hope you find it an interesting talk. We did this in trip when we were sort of in our early 30s, so very timely for people that might be thinking about it. And I'd love to give you the experience. And there's quite a few photos here, but please do jump in. The way I'm sharing the screen now, I can't actually see the questions, but look, we'll start off. So look, our story was that we started in Rome. I bought the boat, so I'm a British guy. We started in Rome, and we sailed around Italy and Greece quite a bit for the first couple of months. And we were sort of finding our feet a bit with the boat. We had a number of issues to start with the boat, and then we did find our feet, and we decided, look, we'd do a North Atlantic circuit, and that was kind of the original plan. And it was only later when we got to the Caribbean, we just said, you know what, like, we're here, we're both enjoying it, and we should think about doing the Pacific. And even at that point, it wasn't by any means certain that it would end up in a circumnavigation. But we sort of said, look, we'll go to New Zealand and maybe we'll sell the boat, maybe we'll keep going, but let's do that. And so Henriette and myself set off, and this talk really is about the bit from Panama through to New Zealand, although I'm not focusing on New Zealand, down to Tonga, which is kind of in the corner there, and then picking up on the other side from Vanuatu and across the Indian Ocean to Madagascar. So it's kind of the tropical bit, if you like, the real trade wind bit, and the bit with all the islands in it. So look, I was going to kick off with so look, that's the first part, as I was saying, Panama. The Galapagos Islands were our first port of call. Then Marquesas, this area is French Polynesia. There's 3 groups: Marquesas, Tuamotus, Society Islands. We then went to Palmerston and Tonga. We went to a few more places as well, but that's kind of gives you an idea of the route. And for sort of perspective, that piece from Panama to New Zealand is about 7,200 miles, but maybe a bit more. And really, when you leave Panama, there aren't really very many places or centers of population along that route. You can fly in and out of Galapagos. You can fly in and out of the Society Islands. In fact, my dad joined us for this bit around French Polynesia. But generally speaking, you're kind of unsupported, and you're going to have to be sort of self-sufficient and self-reliant for a lot of that way. And that sort of informed a bit about the sort of the boat choice and how we went. So jump in, Will, if you've any questions or queries. So the boat's arrival 38, and that's it's a British built boat. It's a 70s design, although this one is built in the 80s, and 38 feet long. By modern standards now, it's got quite a narrow aft section. Most boats carry their beam much further aft now, but it does result in a very sea kindly shape. and you've got a good waterline length for two people, and it was a very solid and reliable boat for us. Nothing too extreme, and anything that went, we were able to fix and keep on top of ourselves. And I'll kind of get a little bit more into, so one of the questions you're asking me, Will, was about what sort of modifications did we make, or what characteristics what modifications did we make along the way. So look, one thing is this wind is a wind vane system for steering, and it's kind of hard to visualize, but this is like a sail, and you actually point it into the wind, so it's kind of hinged. It's not like a weathercock, if you like. It's actually hinged on a horizontal axis, so it kind of flips over from one side to the other, which gives a strong signal as you go off the wind. So the idea is you trim that into the direction you want to sail, and then as wind comes on one side or the other, it flops from one side or to the other, and that sends there's a rod that goes down through here onto a gear, and it twists this piece. This piece is in the water, and it changes the angle of attack of the blade that's in the water, and that blade is free to swing. It's like a pendulum, and the upper part then has control ropes that go to the wheel. So it sounds complicated. It's a dead simple system. Doesn't use any power. Sails you according to the wind. So rather than an auto helm, which so we didn't have an auto helm, so it didn't have the power drain of that. So that was a really, really, really good thing that we had. Also in this picture, you can see we have a solar panel. So that's like a 90-watt panel, and the idea is as much as possible use that rather than your engine or alternator to generate power. And up here we have a wind generator, which was pretty good, especially when you're kind of at anchor, or well, it was pretty good all round, but it did generate a fair bit of power for us. And also you can see there's a bimini, which is an awning. It's quite low to give a good amount of shade, and that was another kind of essential modification for trade wind sailing, or for tropical sailing.
Conor, on that, like you're talking about, this auto helm, well, not necessarily an auto helm system, and obviously then also your, I guess, renewable power sources. What percentage of time did you say spend A, on that steering system versus hand steering, and B, on how much power do you manage to get from those renewable systems versus having to charge the batteries the standard way using your engine?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, so I would say we were probably over 90% steering on the on that wind vane system, and obviously if it depends what you're doing, but if you're on watch at night or something, it's a good way to kind of, at least the steering is taken care of. And if it's a nice day sailing, of course you might do a bit of hand steering, but probably well, maybe not 95, maybe 80-90% or something like that. But it's a really reliable, simple system. The windier it gets, the stronger the signal from it, if you like, gets. And it doesn't really, and it did a fairly accurate course. So that was great. And of course, no power drain, which is really important for us. In terms of the other question, you see most of our other power would have been for lighting. So either nav lights or interior lights, or for communications. And just at that time, we didn't have LED lights in the boat. So everything was, the older style incandescent bulb, and lighting would have probably been one of our most significant loads. So look, we try to minimize engine running and obviously use of lights and anything like that. And we could normally get within a budget where you might have to run the engine, maybe it might be half an hour every 2 days, something like that, if you wanted to keep the batteries topped up, but I would imagine now you could do a lot better, either with a bigger panel and also because of the, that lighting issue is much lower than it is.
Cool.
Okay, so look, another modification. It's a slightly unusual image here, but like we were quite disappointed with our transatlantic speed the first time we did it, and what I came up with was we have an old style furler. It has a single groove in it, and my plan was, could I get a double jib system, like that is the classic kind of downwind sailing rig, because it's a very controllable rig. It's a fast rig, and compared with the spinnaker, it's much more manageable. So So what I got made was, it was the only first time we'd made one, and I hadn't even seen the idea elsewhere. Was we got 2 jibs stitched onto the same bolt rope, and they go up the same groove on the foil, if you like, and then the sails are exactly the same. One of them has a UV strip, which is the blue. The other one doesn't, because one will be inside the other. And the idea is that when you're downwind, can't really see it. Well, you can see that there's two whisker poles really. They're both guide, and there's a block through the pole, and the sails are kind of held out like that. And the beauty of it is that if the wind gets up too much, you're on the fur, and you can actually just wind in both sails together, and you can deal with a squall, or you can kind of just, it's almost like you've got a throttle on it, so it's extremely controllable. And the idea is really that we're sailing two-handed most of the time, and that really means you have to be able to manage with one person sailing. So you need a simple, easily configured system to do that. So that was another great sort of thing that we did before we left the Caribbean. And yeah, look, just to make the point that as you go, we're I think this shot's probably in New Zealand because I've got my shoes on, but I think this is this is the point that we're always maintaining. You're always watching stuff. You're responsible for every system on the boat, and all the decisions kind of around that. And oh yeah, here's another one. This is what's called an Ssb radio. It's a shortwave radio, and I fitted this in when we were in Greece, and this allowed us to communicate to other boats. It was a huge benefit. You could talk over thousands of miles to other boats. We also used it for weather. So that was our main source of weather, it came in 2 forms. One is a weather fax, which is an image that's created just slowly, line by line, over a radio signal. There's many of those transmitted around the world. And the other one was we also got weather information on GRIB files, which is a kind of a digital way of doing that. And the way that worked is we had a modem, effectively a modem that went with that, and that allowed us to send short emails and position reports and communicate. Again, you could be in the middle of the ocean and you're sending a signal and an email to somebody, and you can receive emails. It was quite a low bandwidth system, so we had to be careful giving out the address. You didn't want to get spammed or anything, but it was a brilliant means of communication, and it meant every day there was other services around it. I could send an email with a position report and a small comment. It would get sent to a website, and people could see our route, and they could see what conditions we were having. So it's a way of checking in with people as well.
Would you say, like, I know coming off the back of this Vendée Globe, I think one of the big things all their sailors said was that the sat communications are so much cheaper these days.
Yeah.
They were just on their iPhones on, like, sending back videos via WhatsApp, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
In terms of like the gains, it's mad how far things have come from that to this,
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, yeah, like now, and that's true. I did see all, the in terms of the rescue, the Scotia rescue, there was, I think they were communicating on WhatsApp while they were doing that. It's incredible. Yeah. So yeah, that's a real step change. I suppose the other advantage of this is that it was, it's obviously free, and you do have to. It is a little bit technical around kind of watching propagation and what frequencies. But the other thing is you can. We were able to kind of catch up with, find out what people ahead of us were doing, maybe what's going on with the check-in procedure in a particular country or area, see what the weather conditions were. And you'd have these kind of networks that were going across the Pacific, and people were just joining in, and you'd hear people talking, then you might meet them, and it was a great way. Or just we had our own with our friends, and in fact one of our friends got into difficulty, and it was a great way to kind of help them out. But so at the time, the alternative would have been a sat phone, and we did have a sat phone, but it was really not nearly as useful. Very useful for staying in touch with people at home, but yeah, as you say, it's probably come on a long way since then.
Okay. Yeah.
But, all right, this is just there's a joke about cruising that it's going somewhere exotic in order to fix your boat, but there's a lot of sail repairs and stuff done along the way, and so it's Henrietta doing one there. So look, I mean, and you were asking as well about, like, was our boat typical and who else was doing it? And, it was a kind of a striking thing that when we started in the Med, we didn't really meet many sailors that were our sort of age, but in the Pacific, it really changed quite a lot. And we found there's a lot of boats, a lot of couples out doing what we were doing. And so I've just put together a couple of pictures of some of the boats, because, people might have an idea in their mind about the boat needs to be this or that. And honestly, there's so many different ways to do this, and many different boats. And this is, in my mind, quite an unusual one. That boat there is it's hard to recognize it, but it's an MG34, which is it's a Rob Humphreys design from the 80s, and it wouldn't have been on my list. But there's a guy out there, and he's kind of making it work. This guy here, this is a Proud 38, which is an older style catamaran. It's quite low freeboard by modern design, and it actually has quite a low bridge deck. And again, it's not nearly as capable in my view as the more modern, higher freeboard. Your kind of Katanas and gunboats, or it's a bit, it doesn't have the power of the Outremer or these other catamarans. But again, it was a reasonably good boat for what they were doing. Let's see what else. Okay, this one is that's a Tradewind 35, and that shot's in Mozambique. So they were very similar to us. You can't really see it, but he's also got a wind vane system at the back. He's got a couple of solar panels here. They were two-handed as well. All these boats were two-handed, and there used to be one of these in the club, actually. Jim Gorman, I think, had one. This is another cat, another friend of ours. This is actually in Panama. We're just inside the harbor walls in Panama here, and we hadn't actually met them yet, but we knew of them. And so that's a Fontaine Pajot. It's a 38-foot cat, so it's a slightly more modern one than the Prout. But curiously, he over long trips he wasn't any faster. Now, he might have been sailing a bit more conservatively, but not much faster than us. So, but he did have a lot more space, a lot more volume. Yeah. Okay, this is similar to the first shot. That's a Trade 133, another couple. That shot's in the Galapagos there. And this boat here, this is an American couple, very, they're maybe early 20s, and they were both very practical and resourceful, and they kind of needed to be, with that boat. But he bought that in the Pacific Northwest, and he'd sailed it down, and he got as far as New Zealand and perhaps further. We lost touch with them after that. And then this is the other end of the scale. This is good friends of ours, and that's a Swan 46, which is a very powerful boat, and at times a bit too powerful for the two of them. But superb sailing machine, and that's in Cocos Keeling. You can see just a bit of a breeze kicking up there. Yeah. So.
Kind of just on those kind of, when you were looking for your boat at the start, you obviously did so many modifications and got it all ready for your trip.
Yeah.
Were you looking for any boat that kind of that you saw and you fell in love with it, or were you looking for a project, one that you had some time to do and get to know the ins and outs of it? Because I know it's important, to know your boat inside out when you're doing a trip like this. So
yeah. Like, I mean, I suppose I did look at a couple of other boats, and then but this one, like, when I saw it even in the ad, I just thought, like, especially where we, because just where we were in terms of I was looking at maybe a sportier boat to begin with, and I thought, well, that wouldn't really be suitable. Like, this is for Henrietta and myself, and we wanted a boat that we could really kind of depend on, if you like, and would take care of us in one sense. But we didn't really have the ambition, as I said, to start with, of doing a circumnavigation. And it is true that when we got the boat, there were a lot of issues that had to be sort of ironed out. And the first maybe couple of months in the Med, like, we were having quite a few issues and failures, and just finding out kind of weak spots, and nothing terrible, but it kind of meant that we spent quite a lot of time debugging the boat and just hardening the boat and getting it right. And but it really paid off, you know, because like, and there were times when we were wondering, you know, have we taken on too much here? And because you'd put all the work in, you know, like put in that radio, put in the panels, you know, do whatever jobs needed to be done, and then next thing you've got a, you know, an issue pops up in an unexpected area. But and there was a moment when we were in the Aegean where Henrietta was saying to me, well, you know, you think you can, so you know, if you think you can sail, you know, across the Atlantic, how come you can't sail from you know, Kea to Idra without something failing? And but eventually we burned out all those issues. And you know, by the time when we started heading west, even through the Med, we didn't have, I don't think we had another kind of failure of any significance of any equipment until we got to Tahiti. I mean, we went the whole, you know, it was a year of sailing then with that boat once we had it right. And the trick really was, when everything went wrong, you try and, you know, figure out why and make it better, make it stronger, you know, and just understand it. And it was really, I mean, I'm probably being a bit unfair to the previous owner, but he just used it in a completely different way. He's he was an older guy, and you know, he would hop from marina to marina sort of thing, and he was never really testing it. But you're dead right, Will. I mean, you know, we saw people with new boats, new equipment, you know, arriving in the Canaries, having kind of hopped down along the coast, really, maybe done a long, you know, a 4-day trip out to the Canaries or something, and then on the transatlantic they were continually having issues. And so we were well through all of that by the time we got to the Caribbean, and you know, that was kind of part of our confidence in the boat to keep going, you know.
Yeah, and I that kind of, you know, highlights a good point as well, that, you know, I think a lot of people see maybe some of the YouTube couples or some of the videos around the place that, like, you know, you have to have this beautiful, glorious boat that's like a Outremer that's going to cost you, you know, a couple of $100,000 or something like that. You know, it's a lot more accessible than people think. You know, you can get a boat and you can just put the man hours into it and make it perfect, you know.
And you know what I mean, like for like what you like, and you know, we'll flick through probably a few photographs of kind of the anchorages along the way, and but you'll see that the, you know, most of the boats will be in the kind of 35 to 45 foot range. Most of them will be sailed by most of them are sailed by you know, people in their, in, you know, between 35 or 25 and 35, we'll say, that kind of area. And you know, there are you know, people can do it again when they're retired, but the idea is that it's a sort of a 6-month commitment. I should have mentioned at the start that your whole objective is to cross the South Pacific in the southern hemisphere winter, so that you're not getting into the cyclone season. So it's, you know, it is quite a time commitment, even that Pacific piece. So like, yeah, it suits people before they kind of settle down and have families. And you're dead right. I mean, like, I saw a boat like mine for sale in one of the UK sites there for 35k, which is, and it's actually better equipped than my one is. But yeah, so it's definitely affordable. You know, it doesn't have to be the Outremer 45 like Vagabond, I think.
So, exactly. Yeah.
So look, I tell you what we might just show you. I mean, this was kind of the big step for us, is when you get to, so we sailed from Grenada to Panama, and so what happens there is you kind of spend a day kind of running around trying to check in. You need a cruising permit. You need to, you know, do the immigration, your customs. You need to sort of, you know, get on the waiting list for the transit to the canal, and you need you need to be measured. I think they actually need to come out and check that you really are under, you know, I think it's under 75 feet or something. I can't remember the number, but they come out and they prove it, and then, you know, you agree that, you know, the some money, and that's it. And they give you a pilot, and the pilot comes on board at maybe 4 or 5 in the morning, and this is us just approaching the first lock. So that ship in front of us, he's not fully into the lock. You can see it's a double lock system. There's another ship coming the other way, and what happens is, you can just see the gates there. Those are the gates. So he goes all the way in, and you kind of follow him in, and then you know, you raft up. There's a couple of boats. I'm not showing him. And right. And what's happened here is, if you look at the water level, it's obviously come up. So the gates are closed. You're stepping up. Basically, the way it works is you step up for 3 locks, and you get into this flooded lake in the middle. Like in the original plan with the Panama Canal was that the French idea was to cut a channel, like a sea level channel, all the way through. And obviously that didn't work out. So when the Americans came, they said, right, we'll divert a river, we'll build a dam, we'll flood the lake in the middle. You'll step up into this lake from the Atlantic side, and then you'll step down again. And that sort of got away with, did away with a lot of the excavation. So here's the first lock, and you can see we're stepping up, and he's just started his engine. He's also held by 2 kind of trains that have winches on them and lines that hold them. And that all moves along. You can see, obviously, there's very little space to play with in this. And yeah, so that's kind of the train and some of the hardware that they have around the place. And okay, so in the middle, as I say, it's a lake, a flooded area, and the yachts can kind of take a shortcut, and the ships have to go a slightly longer route. But it's all very interesting, and it's all quite quick. I think it's about 30 miles, which is kind of incredible from one side to the other. And we actually, you're kind of there before midday. So this boat in front of us is we got to know them very well. They're good friends of ours. That's a Norwegian boat. That's a 10.5 meter boat. It's sitting really low in the water. You're actually in fresh water here, so it's everyone's down a little bit on their marks. And also, people had kind of stocked up quite a bit of food and stuff to get through the Pacific, and I might touch on that. The boat in front of that's an Ovni, which is a kind of an aluminium French boat, a 45. It's a lovely cruising boat, and you can see that got traffic coming the other way. And then this part of the canal was the piece that was cut. There's about it's probably almost 10 miles long that they did cut through the sort of the mountain range to make it work. And then what happens is you get to, as I say, you're stepping down into the Pacific side. There's 3 more locks to step down. Again, they're a double lock. There's another lock another channel over here. This bridge is a swing bridge. You can actually, that one swings to the middle, and that one swings to the middle for a roadway. And you're looking, this is when the sea level has fallen. So now we're locking back down. In front of it, you can see another gate actually. And then, well, you're out. As I say, it's kind of midday, and you're on the other side of the Americas, and the sort of that Pacific adventure has begun. You're about to set off on this long adventure, really. And just to say, all the boats obviously on the left hand side of this image are on mooring, and then over on the right you can see this is a Albatross 35. It's another kind of cruising, quite a typical kind of cruising boat there as well in that sort of range. Yeah. So well, what I might just say is, so here, like the plan when we left Panama, we did a very we provisioned for about 6 months. That was our plan. So we'd very we had a long shopping list, and we kind of detailed what we thought we would need, and a big spreadsheet that sort of pulled all that together. And I think it probably came into, it was quite cheap in relative terms. It was maybe $2,000 or something like that, less than that for 6 months food. And that was probably over 3/4 of the food that we used along the way. So it's people, and there's no other charges. I mean, you're anchoring, and there's not many shops, so there's not many outgoings. So it doesn't have to be a very expensive operation. So what I might just show you, it's got 2 sides to it. There's the boat bit, which we've kind of talked a lot about, and then there's the sort of the traveling bit. So this was our first arrival in Galapagos Islands. It was about an 800-mile trip. It was mainly upwind. Only the last bit we got a bit of a breeze behind us. We had a bit of a detour along the way. One of our friends had an issue with their rig and was forced to motor, and we diverted down to them and gave them all our spare diesel, and that was quite an interesting thing about but yeah. So anyway, look, we got to the Galapagos, and like, you know, it is kind of amazing. You can see that, you know, it is on the equator, but it's quite cool. There's a cold water current that keeps everything cool. There's incredible wildlife. I mean, everywhere you look, there's wildlife, and it's all. So the strange thing about the Galapagos is that the wildlife is almost tame. What's the theory is that the animals arrived. You know, you're 1,000 miles off land, we'll say. So the animal might have arrived, but its predator wouldn't, and you know, there's lots of food, and they don't actually compete very strongly. So everywhere you look, they're animals, and they don't they're not afraid. So these were iguana. You can see a few marine iguana just hanging out. Again, a large one there. Some fur seals. Some of the islands are parks where you can't visit, or you can only visit as part of a tour. Other ones are and they would tend to be uninhabited. There's about 12 islands, I think, in the group. Maybe 6 are inhabited. So this was another one that we went on a sort of a day trip on. And again, you can see that these birds are called blue-footed booby, and there are many of them. And again, they just kind of hang out, and like if that was Dalkey Island and that was a seagull, you know, there's no way he'd just be looking at you. He'd be straight out, you know what I mean? He'd go for you. So with an egg, like, it's incredible. So and again, this one here, these are albatross. So, you know, that's a bird with a 6-foot wingspan and a 6-inch beak, and they're as placid and as quiet. So it is quite remarkable. And even on this is a rock pool on one of the western islands, Isabel, and you can see that just within the rock pool, there's a number of sharks. There's just a white tip reef shark, but they just kind of so you know, the proliferation of wildlife because of the cold water current and the amount of oxygen there is quite amazing. So yeah.
Conor, I guess, like, compared to the kind of Caribbean islands that have been fairly well traveled, you know, these kind of islands are a lot more, I guess, remote and probably harder to get to. Like, do they feel pretty untouched? And then also, you know, like, did you have what, like, pilot books? How did you know where you could go, where you couldn't go, you know, things like that?
Yeah, so we did have there's another thing actually we did in Panama was we did try to get, obviously, and throughout the Caribbean once you made the decision, but it was actually quite hard to get information and get charts. But in Panama, we kind of pooled together with a number of other boats, and we photocopied charts because there's no alternative. And so we had good coverage for charts. We did manage to get guidebooks. They're not super detailed. We did have one that more or less covered the Pacific, and it did show some of the islands. But like, this is kind of where the radio came in a bit, because, you know, some boats went to some places and we were kind of talking to a few of them, and then we decided we'd go to the first island, which is called Cristobal. And like, there was uncertainty about, you know, if you read the guidebook strictly, it says, you know, you need a permit, and you but the key was, in my mind, you could get the permit on arrival. So we arrived, and they weren't actually interested in policing this permit at all when we got there. And in fact, you know, if you read the guide, it sort of said you can stay in Cristobal for maybe 24 hours or 48 hours. And I went along to the immigration guy there, and he said, "How long do you want to stay?" And I said, "Well, you know, 3 weeks or something," and he just stamped my passport and away we went. So it actually turned out to be quite benign. So we did spend a number of weeks going around these islands, and I just kind of picked a short few images there. But you're right, they're not, you know, there's a number of fishermen. The Ecuadorian, there was like a they almost tried to set up a fishery for you know, some people, which did drive up the population a little bit, but it's still very, very empty. And you know, it is an amazing place. We did a fair bit of hiking, we did some horse trekking, and we did a lot of snorkeling and swimming and stuff. Yeah, it's a really cool place. Yeah. So yeah, this is maybe just another few shots. So look, what I might say, Will. So that was that stretch there. The next bit is kind of Galapagos to Marquesas. Now that's around 3,000 miles right there. So that's more than a transatlantic. Maybe 10% more or something like that. And it's quite a change because, as you said, you're leaving somewhere quite remote and you're going somewhere quite remote, and there's no one to, there weren't many, like, there's no last minute provisioning, there's no bit of gear, or there's no whatever, there's no chandler. You're just going to go. So yeah, so it was a great trip for us, and it was the first test of that long sail, that double sail I was describing. And you arrive here. This is called Bay de Vierge. It's in Fatuhiva in the Marquesas, and it's incredible. It's like these islands are these peaks are 1,000 meters, 1,200 meters. A lot of these basalt kind of formations. It's quite amazing. And we had as a landfall, again, a bay. It's everything's quite steep too, so it's quite a deep anchorage. And but yeah, it's absolutely incredible. So we spent about a week in this island, so we did again a bit of hiking around and stuff like that. Just want to show you kind of back to that issue around the boats and what people have. So that is probably the Albatross that was on the right in that image at Panama. This guy here is 42 footer. He's got a steel boat, quite a powerful rig, one-off design. You can see there's a couple of smaller French boats here, and there is a catamaran over here. But again, like the boats aren't they're not super yachts. That's a shot from one of the hikes we did to look back down into the bay. So you can imagine how steep too the bay is. Like you're kind of we were anchored in 15 meters, and the issue is that if your anchor drags, well, you're gone, because the depth increases so quickly. You just be at the back of the anchorage and before you know it. And we used to get these kind of katabatic winds during the day. We're on the leeward side of the island here, but we used to get these kind of downward drafts during the day. During the night, that would swing us around a little bit. But it was a lovely place. So and actually, at night they used to do this. They were all practicing for this Bastille Day sort of event. So they'd all, there's all this kind of music going on, and they were trying to practice their dance and music, and very welcoming and interested in us, and yeah. So we had a few nice days there. So yeah. And this ship here, this is their supply ship. This is a different island now, but it just gives you a sense of the scale of these islands. And this comes around every couple of months. So you're about you're probably 600 miles from Tahiti, which is the main town, if you like, the main island, and so that comes around every so often. And that gives them all their supplies. So again, it's not going to be a great range of. There is obviously a lot of fresh food, but in terms of any other produce, it's going to be slim pickings.
On the islands, you said you were perceived pretty well. You had the music, and they're pretty welcoming. But was there ever a sense of you're a visitor, this is our island, you're taking our limited food, because sometimes you could imagine it'd be quite imposing for all these people.
Yeah, and no, I mean they're actually very used to visitors. I mean, it's come back to me now, but when we arrived that morning in Fatuhiva, this fishing boat came up, and just a small open boat now, and he had two fish, like a snapper and a trevally or something, and he was offering to sell them, and so I was saying, well, I have no money, j'ai pas d'argent and all that sort of thing. And then he said, well, do you have any beer? And I said, well, yeah, because you've done this huge provisioning in Panama. So we agreed 4 beers for the 2 fish, which the fish beer costs like $1 or less or something. But anyway, we went ashore probably within half an hour, and it was probably before 9 in the morning. well, we realized it's a dry island. You cannot buy beer. They don't sell alcohol. So that was kind of a bit of a faux pas, and it only worked because he spotted we were new on the island. We hadn't even gone ashore, so he went straight out to us, So a bit cheeky that way. But that was the only. I mean, it wasn't even a bad thing. But no, in general, they're very welcoming, and they're used to visitors from, a lot, and visitors yachts from a long way back. If you read even the cruisers from the 50s, Hiscock and these guys, they would have gone into that bay, and it's kind of a noted bay, particularly among the French, for to go to. I was looking at, actually, even there's a yachting world at the moment, and it's a boat called Sunstone, and that's the image they chose, was one in that harbor there. So yeah, they're quite, they're quite used to visitors, and maybe, yeah, and actually further west, and it's kind of Tonga or Vanuatu, you'll see that as well. They actually come out. They kind of almost set the scene. You must come. You must meet the chief. You must, maybe bring a gift, and we'll give you some food. And if you need water, you get it here. And if you want to look around, my son will show you this and that. So they're very welcoming, yeah, and curious, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So this is Nukuhiva. This is the main bay on the main island, if you like. So this is maybe the busiest anchorage in this group. And again, you can see there's obviously let's see, I don't know if you can zoom in. So yeah, he's probably heading for 70 feet long, 60, 65, 70 feet long. This guy's probably 50-footer. And I'd say pretty much everybody else is in that kind of range. That's that trade 133, actually, that was in the earlier picture. And yeah, everyone, they're all fairly, they're not out of this world boats by any stretch. Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. So actually, that's the next image. This is another island. We went to about 5 or 6 of these islands, and it does rain. And when it rains, it rains. It really hammers down. So we were just kind of having a look around that one. And again, like that's the bay you're anchored in. It's the spectacular rock formations again. And yeah, so look, that was the kind of that first group. Remember I said the French Polynesia 3 groups. So this is this northern volcanic one. What you have in the middle then is a group of reefs, and maybe I have a map. Yeah, map. Yeah, and then we have the Society Islands, which is like Tahiti and Bora Bora, and they're about a bit of a mixture between the first two. They have a high volcanic island in the middle, and they've got a fringing reef. And the thing about these reefs is they have a pass. Well, most of them have a pass in and out of them. Now it's a little bit tricky, and I'll show you a bit of that. You have to be careful. It's not. In a way, it's no more difficult than going across a bar in a harbor or something. But you just have to be a little bit careful. And the other thing about them is the scale of them. So what I showed here. So if you take, so here we have the Irish Sea. So obviously the Irish coast here up to Carlingford and Strangford, and the Isle of Man and Wales and so on. So if you took Rangiroa and you stuck it in the Irish Sea, which is one of these atolls that we're about to come into, it would go from Dún Laoghaire up to Carlingford Lough, and it would comfortably, you'd comfortably fit the Isle of Man into it. So they are kind of incredible. And this island group has about 60 of them. Not all as big as that, obviously, but many of them are in the kind of 10-mile, 20-mile long range, and they've got a really low sort of this is just coral, and it will have a few trees in places, and other places it won't. They will have the biggest structure might be a 1-story structure or something on it, and so you don't actually see, and because it's in the ocean and there is a swell, it's hard to pick out exactly what you're looking at. So I'll just show you. So for example, this again, the double jib, but we're about a mile off this, and you're looking at gaps, and you're wondering which one is the pass. And the idea really is that the charts aren't very accurate. Like when I'll show you now. So okay, well, I'll get to that. So this is kind of the bit between those. These are called motus, by the way. These clumps of palm trees, and in between them you've got reef. And what's happening out here, you're more or less in ocean depth. So when you're a mile out, you could still be in 2,000 meters or more, And then inside the lagoon, it'll be 20 meters or less. It's and you've got this kind of wall of coral. So this is the pass, and so like you are in this case, it is marked, which is great, and you can see there's an area of shoal water here, and maybe a breaking wave or something over here, and you're looking. These are obviously the far side of the island. So that's fairly clear what's going to go on there. So you're going to go in, hook around that wave, stay out of that shoal. As you go through the pass, you get a bit of turbulence, and it's because of this huge change in depth, and it's a tidal effect, obviously, and it's a tidal effect, and also there's the effect that water is entering on the windward side of the island. This is on the leeward side. The passes tend to be on the leeward side, and water kind of comes over, the waves crash over, and then they come out on this side. So there tends to be a net outward flow, we'll say. It does kind of come in from time to time, but there's more out than in through the pass. And so that is actually that pass where we've just come in, and now we're kind of dodging that shoal, and then we're going to straighten up and go into the lagoon. And then once you're in the lagoon, it's like this. It's an absolute mill pond. I mean, it's incredible. So now this was the first one we went to, and it was the busiest one we went to. So like that is actually that Fontaine-Pajot that was in Panama, and that's that boat that was off to the right in Fatuhiva, that steel one. So yeah, probably a lot of people made that. And it's kind of funny because we went off on our own for a few weeks, or with one or two boats, and then we wound up with a group again when we came back in here. And these islands have it's a lot of pearl farms, that they're noted for the pearl farms. And you see the guy here with the kind of holding up the line of the oysters. They're all black pearls, and yeah, just it's quite an industry. So this is another one. This one is not marked, this pass, and so the trick is, like, you really have to be, you have to be very careful entering them to make sure that it is the right pass. And I mentioned the charting, like when the charts aren't accurate, and you'll see this a lot in this area, that they're not accurately surveyed, so that when we went through this, if you replayed the track of the GPS, it would have shown us going across the reef rather than through the pass. The other thing in this photo is the sun is quite low. If you look at the shadows that we're getting here, and okay, we're heading east. The sun is to the north, if you like, because we're obviously in the southern hemisphere, and that means you can't go. You can see that the visibility ain't great at the moment, so you're going to have to turn to the right, which was the plan, and get the sun behind you, and then you can see what's coming up. So like that's the type of thing that is going to be in the lagoon. This won't be marked, and it won't be charted. So it's just kind of eyeball stuff once you're in. So and again, you can see like the variations in depth. Another pearl farm, but oops, you can see the where was it gone? You can see this, a very shoal area, and so it's it's really interesting, and not difficult, but you need good daylight, and you need the sun behind you to see what you're doing. And then this is actually at the southern end of that same atoll, and you can see again a bit of turbulence. You can see a shoal area. It's marked, and you can see that is the path. There's two passes in this island. That's a pass out to the west there as well. You can see the kind of construction. Very low, little land. If I try and zoom in, you might see a few things. Everyone collects. They collect water. You can see this guy's got a big cistern. We in this place, it's Apataki. We met a French couple that ran one of the pearl farms, and we sort of, they showed us a few kind of, bits around the pearl farm, and also, we just hung out with them for a couple of days, and they actually had a load of water, because as I say, when it rains, it rains. The trick is to catch it, and so we actually managed to fill our water tank, which is very unexpected. And then maybe just the last one. This is called Tuao, and again you can see a shoal area. Again, this one is marked, but the most beautiful places, and a bit of breeze there that day, I'd say. And yeah, we had just a fantastic time there.
What was the distance in between each of these atolls? You know, like would you have spent, you know, a day sailing from one to the next, or you know,
Well, let
what
me
was
see.
kind of day to day?
Let's see if I can get it. It's a bit risky now changing our. Let me see. Okay. If I go. Go Google Earth. Let's say. Maybe Google Earth will do it. So it might take a second. Can you still got my screen up?
Yeah, you still see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's just because, you know, people kind of wonder, you know, do you spend most time sailing, or, you know, because I guess, like, you know, the big trips are obviously, you know, the obvious ones, you're doing 3,000 miles here and there,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
then the day-to-day life it could be completely different, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. I know this isn't going to work because I'm where. Let's say that could be the Marquesas. Yeah, here we go. That was good. So like these are relatively close. Like that was Rangiroa that I showed you. That's 45 miles.
We can just still see the photo there. We can't see the chart you're looking at.
Oh right, okay. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Is that any better?
There you go. Yeah.
Okay, so just to zoom out again. It's gonna, okay, so that was the Marquesas, right? That was up there. This stuff here, just to kind of give you a sense of it. Like that was maybe 2 days sailing, I think, maybe a bit more down from Fatuhiva to there. Once you're in this area, like they're all within sight, and they're pretty much on top of each other. Now, as I say, that Rangiroa, that's 45 miles long. These ones are more like 10, 15 miles long. And I think we went to this one up here. Which one of these? I think it was this one. Ahe was the first one I showed you. Apataki was that one where we went. Actually, that's the pass there. We went in that little pass at the top, and then down, and then we went out this pass down here. So that the image I was showing you was you know, you could see that shoal area, and we're probably somewhere over here. That's actually cloud. It's not a great shot, maybe.
Okay.
And so these ones, as soon as you leave one, you're almost looking at the next one. We went down to Tuao. We went down through that pass. No, that's a false pass. That one's quite interesting. If you can see it, it looks like a pass, and it brings you into a mini lagoon. And I did actually see a boat in there.
Wow.
So you could do that, but we went down a pass. That was one of these two down here. Yeah. So like it's a really fascinating area. And actually, if anyone's got the yachting world this month, there's a guy that's spending his COVID lockdown, you know, spearfishing and swimming around here because they weren't letting him into Tahiti for a while, you know. So it is a pretty amazing place. But I suppose what's striking again is the just the variation, you know. So I'm like, while I'm here, like I'll show you. This is Papeete. Sorry, Tahiti, and the town is Papeete, and you can see you kind of sail again through a pass, and like we sailed through that at night. Actually, we rarely went through pass anywhere at night into a harbour, but it was so well lit. It's the biggest, obviously, town in the area. It's extremely well lit, and you can get ships in and out of it. So we went in and we kind of did a Mediterranean moor against a quay or something over here. It was lovely.
Nice.
And again, you can get the idea that it's a fringing reef, and again, the shallow water, and then this, you know, huge mountain in between, you know. So let me see if I can get back to the photos. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So after we left the Tuamotus, this is kind of the deal in those lower islands. This one's actually called Morea. It's got a deep bay, this Opanua Bay, and very easy reef to kind of navigate. And then you're straight into this lagoon again, and you can see just in the foreground, you know, on the line there, a number of yachts kind of coming in. Sorry, and yeah, again, that's in there. You can that's a 42-foot cat. What is it? It's a I think it's called Sea Leopard 42. This, and over here, that's an ovni. That's could be in the ovni that we saw ahead of us in the canal. And there's a cat in there as well, another cat over there. So yeah, and then so again, like this, that idea that a lot of the boats are actually, in that 35, 45-foot range, and again, generally sailed by couples, by young couples. So look, this is a shot of Bora Bora. You can see, if you look carefully, there's a white line there. That's the reef, and then in behind it is the island, and we're just the pass on this side is around the west. So yeah, that was those Society Islands. So that's kind of French Polynesia. We will maybe do. I'm going to show you one more reef here, and then a bit over Tonga. So sorry, yeah, a very small bit there. So look, this is a reef called Palmerston. It's in the southern Cook Islands, and here you can't get inside the reef. So this is a shot outside the reef. Two boats here. There's a French 36 steel thing, and this is a 72-foot Norwegian boat. It's an aluminium boat. And what you have to watch is that, like, that land there, that is actually the reef is between us and that land. And there's reef, then the lagoon, and then that land is on the far side of the lagoon. And that reef actually continues all the way down around here. You just can't see it. So it's extremely dangerous. There isn't even a breaking wave on it in the shot. Now, that's partly due to the glare of the sun, but it just shows you the hazard that you have. This is on the island. It's quite a remote one. They get a boat every 4 months. I think it's from New Zealand. So it's quite remote. And here's the idea that you can see the beach, the lagoon, the reef, and then we're perched on the outside of the reef. And again, if something were to, it's not a safe anchorage really, because you're anchored on this very dramatic downhill slope from the coral wall. So you found a space where the anchor's hooked in, but happens a change of wind or something, you wouldn't be comfortable leaving a boat there for any length of time. Okay, so that's a Dorado that we this is caught on the next leg. So we did quite a bit of fishing, and that's one of the larger catches we had, and yeah, we got quite handy at fishing. That's another one. That's a tuna, a yellowfin tuna, that we also landed. Okay, so yeah, I was, we quite a lot of rice, which is one of our staples on board, and then we would obviously have great to catch fish and stuff like as well. We did and we did quite a bit of sushi and stuff like that so it's great. Okay, yeah. So what I was going to do then, what was this? Oh yeah, this is just an anchorage in Tonga. I'm not going to spend long on this. That boat's called it's a 52-footer. It's called a Maramu, an AML. That's quite a common cruising boat. You see quite a lot of them in the Med, and it's kind of for 50. Yeah, it's sort of a short. People like it because it's short-handed sailing, and then this again, it's another large anchorage. People are gathering here before heading south in their trip to New Zealand. So what have we got? That's a Swan 38, Sirona, a couple of cats. Not sure what else we got there. We did a race. We won a dive trip. It was all down. It's in this kind of long inlet in Tonga at Neafu, and as you can see, the way the wind is blowing down the inlet. So we got up to the top end, and then we popped. We actually had the crew from that big Norwegian, that 72-footer. They were helping us that day, and we opened up the double jib you see at the top of the bay and zoomed down and picked up a few spots. So that was good fun. Okay, so what I was going to do there, Will, I've got maybe 2 more places to show you, or maybe 3, but what I was going to say was we obviously went down to New Zealand. Had a great time in New Zealand. We left the boat in New Zealand for just over a year, maybe 13 or 14 months or something. And we went back to work, and then we picked the boat up, and our first trip was up to Vanuatu. And Vanuatu it's a really cool place. This is the trip. It's Henry on the way up. it's very much out of the way, and people do kind of rave about it, that do make it there, and we really weren't disappointed. So it's quite different from the Polynesian islands. You can see here the guys are in a dugout canoe, the classic kind of Pacific single outrigger, um, and they're fishing with a monofilament net. And like, it's a bit like you asked earlier, what happens? Well, the guy comes over, and they do want to talk to you, and they speak French, they speak a bit of English, they're well used to travelers. I should say this bay here is called Port Resolution. It's on one of the southerly islands. The island's called Tanna, but Port Resolution was named by Captain Cook, and he would have visited this island in the 1770s. So they kind of have been getting European visitors for quite a while. So actually, what he said was, "Yeah, come. We're at. The chief is will have some food, and you come ashore this evening, and obviously it's understood you're going to bring some sort of a present or something, or a gift." And he also said, "Well, there's going to be a festival in a couple of days, and you're invited to that as well." And so, look, also on the island there is a volcano, and it's an active volcano, and we got some of the guys from the village to bring us up to the volcano, and at night you can see it really is it is active. I mean, I'm not sure what I was expecting, but you're walking right up to the lip of this volcano, and then when it gets dark you can really see what it's kicking off. It's quite dramatic, and yeah, so I sort of got more than I bargained for. I'm not sure what I was expecting at that point, but yeah. Anyway, so the festival he described was it was a kind of a coming of age ceremony for 3 boys in the village, and they brought in a number of animals. This hog was screaming as they brought him in. Here's I guess what happened. 2 of them there, and a goat. Goat got his throat cut. And the idea is that they gather these presents for the boys. So that's kind of 2 heaps there, 1 heap there, and 1 heap there. A lot of kind of baskets, and a lot of food. This stuff here is called kava, which is it's a root that they chew, and it kind of has a I suppose it's a mild drug, I guess. And in many of the Pacific islands, they make it. In some islands, they kind of grind it with coral into a powder. Here, they chew it, and they sort of spit it into a bucket and leave it, and then they pass it around in a sort of a circle later in the evening. So yeah. Here you can see, well, there's the hog again. This fish as well. You kind of get the idea that all these gifts, and it goes on all day, and lots of singing and dancing and all of that. And yeah, so like they want you there. They want to. They're not. It's not for the benefit of any tourists, but they certainly they're welcoming, and they want you to see a bit of it. So yeah. Cool.
When you go to these islands and they expect you to bring a gift, what kind of gifts were you bringing? Because surely you didn't have much on the boat.
Yeah, no, it could be. Look, it could be anything. I mean, as I say, the faux pas was alcohol, but we learned that one. But yeah, it can be anything. I mean, anything. Like they have so much natural food. I mean, ironically, what they like is kind of almost any processed food. We had some dried food, which you turn your nose up at, except that you're on a boat, we'll say, but they loved it, and like anything. We had even tinned fruit. I think we had. I mean, in Palmerston, we were thinking about it a bit, and we gave them some packet, like mash, like dry dehydrated mash, which I don't even know why we wouldn't have that much of it, and they were delighted with it, and they were handing it around like it was kind of a delicacy almost. But so they're not, they're just kind of interested in what you have. They're not. It's not. The other thing they are very interested in is any fishing gear, because any lures or any snorkeling gear, because their stuff wears out and they need more. So if you have anything like that, that'd be great. Yeah. And actually on that one, the during that day, Henrietta went, we went back to the boat at one stage. Then I came back in the evening, and they were doing this this cava sort of circle, and but I didn't take any. The thinking was really that, well, the boat's half a mile out in the anchorage. I'm going to have to launch a dinghy, row out to the boat, get on board, and I just don't want anything kind of getting in the way of that, So yeah, but yeah, it's great. Okay, so look, that was Vanuatu, and we then went from Vanuatu to Christmas Island, and that was a trip. Now, you see, one of the reasons for this was we were sort of late in the season leaving New Zealand. We left in July, and we had a lot of ground to make up. So what we did was that we did a 4,000-mile sail from Vanuatu through the Torres Strait. Here it was a bit tricky, and all the way to Christmas Island. So we left all of mainland Australia to port, and arrived at one of their outlying islands, if you like. And so that was 26 days, which it was 150 miles a day. We'll say for 26 days would be 3,900 miles. So it was good going, good pace. And let's see if I have any photos. Oops. Yeah, that's actually going through the Torres Strait, just coming out the other side and just heading west on the sunset. This is along the way. You can't tell from the flag, but I can tell from the angle of attack of the wind vane that's a quarter breeze. Like we're kind of broad reaching here. Got a good wake. We're booming along. You can see actually the ropes that go to the steering arm. Can't really see the steering arm, but it's there. So that's kind of what pulls them, pulls the wheel around for you and keeps you on track. That's a waterspout or tornado that's about to. It didn't actually form, but you can see that it's got the potential to kind of form one. So quite squally, but but not too windy. Kind of winds in the 25 knot range and pretty solid. And so we arrived in this Cocos Keeling. Yeah, I've skipped Christmas Island. This is the next island actually. If you go back to that chart, Cocos Keeling was here. So it's an image of that, and that's that swan in the background. We actually sailed quite a bit with those guys, and yeah, you can see the sail doesn't furl so well because, well, they're identical. So the outer one should probably be a bit bigger, otherwise it doesn't furl as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then actually, I'm moving fairly quickly here. This is called Chagos. Chagos is it's an uninhabited atoll in the middle of the Indian Ocean. It's, when I say uninhabited, there's a Navy base or British Navy or American, I suppose now, base in one of the South Islands, which is about 150 miles away. But basically, these islands were cleared. They were part of Mauritius, and at the time, the British owned Mauritius and the Seychelles. And what they did was they sort of detached this island group from Mauritius, and they gave Mauritius its independence. Then they moved all the people from these islands to the Seychelles, and then they gave the Seychelles their independence, if you like. So the effect was that they retained an uninhabited island in the Indian Ocean, which they now use with the Americans for one of their bases. But it is uninhabited, and you can see marks of previous kind of habitation. It's actually an ongoing court case. The Chagosians, as they're called, they won a UN case recently, even though this they were probably removed in the 60s, the late 60s. So you can kind of see that they used to have where they used to live, but now totally overgrown and empty. Yeah, so it's amazing. Okay, that's the two of us. So yeah, very much. I'm doing all the talking, but this was a very much Henriette and myself's voyage. So yeah, very much an equal partnership. And yeah, look, there's a shot just kind of with the whole place. Well, I think that Swan was there, but broadly, this is a 10-mile wide lagoon, and we're the only boat in it. As I say, there's nobody ashore, and you've a place to yourselves. So, and that's maybe a view at the back of the island to show some of the deeper water beyond. but incredible stuff. And there's the sunset. You can see the kind of the motus, and then this fantastic skies we used to get. Yeah, I'm not sure why I show. So this is from a cruising guide. One of the reasons I showed it was so we've come Christmas Island, which is that point there, Cocos Keeling, Chagos. Kind of gives you an idea. It's basically it's almost a continuation of the Maldives. You could say that they're about 300 miles to the north. We're about 5 degrees south here, and they're basically on the equator. And our next trip would be to go down towards Madagascar, which is kind of the last bit of this talk. And I mean, an interesting point here is that point there, Carregados, that's where Vestas ran ashore a few years ago, and it kind of just highlights that's an A4 kind of map of the Indian Ocean, and it's marked. It's not it's an interesting point that the navigator wasn't aware of it. I mean, if that had been a proper Admiralty chart, of course it would have been marked. So the danger of these charts is, I think people rely on them very much, and it's great for certain areas, but it can be hard to pick out very small features in the ocean just because of the zooming. You're trying to view it on a screen with a zoom. Okay, so sorry.
Yeah, I was going to ask quickly, because obviously you've kind of gone into the Indian Ocean now, and there's always been, I guess, historically a slightly worry about piracy in those kind of waters. I know the Volvo Ocean Race had issues, or had kind of things in place to avoid the area due to piracy. And Sean Doyle and Evan Dolan have both asked questions, about, did you encounter security issues, or was there any piracy? So what was your kind of experience of that?
Yeah, look, it's a great question. I mean, so at the time we were doing it, the piracy was focused up around here. This island is, you can just see it there. Sokarto is an island kind of at the entrance to the Gulf of Aden and the Red Sea. That was always known for piracy. What kind of happened was it spread down through Somalia, and so definitely in my mind, and part of our consideration for the trip was that we should go around Cape of Good Hope, and that going up the Red Sea would be crazy for that exact reason. And or at least I'll put it, maybe not crazy, but I'd rather take the risk of weather down here than piracy up here. And now what happened in subsequent years was the piracy spread down. They kind of had a mothership kind of model, and they got much more aggressive. And actually shortly after, maybe within a few years of us doing the trip, about the same as ours, Arrival 38 was captured, or the people were kidnapped. The family called the Chandlers, and they were held for over a year. And the British Navy actually picked up their yacht. Their yacht was adrift. The British Navy actually picked it up and brought it back to the UK for them. So when they released, they actually ended up with their boat back. But yeah, we didn't see any piracy. We did see boats from time to time in the open sea, and of course your mind kind of runs riot. But generally speaking, they're fishermen, even in kind of open boats and stuff. But yeah, we didn't really have any trouble. I would say, there's probably anchorages in the Caribbean where it's almost more prevalent to see people, getting sort of into trouble with theft, really. But we didn't have anything like that. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So look, we had a trip down. We on the sail down. I think this is maybe 1,500 miles, a bit less maybe, but we were almost there, and what happened was a low formed in front of us, and well, basically what happened was the wind strengthened through the night, and it shifted around to the north, and generally the prevailing wind is a southeasterly, and so a low in the southern hemisphere is going clockwise. So we were obviously on the eastern side of the low, and we sort of took the decision to try and stay as far north as we could. So we ended up beating into it, and we took that decision quite early. And the wind strength grew and grew, and like when I went off watch, it was maybe 35 knots, and when I came back on, it was well, sorry, when I came on after Henry's watch, it was maybe 35 knots, but by the end of my watch, we had 50 knots of wind, and solid 50 knots now. And so and it was in the middle of the night, and we went through the frontal systems of the low, and obviously we're not able to beat into 50 knots, but we held as much north as we could into our track. But it meant we got through the fronts and out the other side and into the southerly flow again relatively quickly. If we'd gone with the wind, we would have been entrained in the low, and we would have been driven south, and we might not, could potentially have strengthened in all kinds. So it's the right call to go north. And this is the next day. This is late the next afternoon, and you can just kind of see it's quite a, it's maybe by no means the height of the storm, but still quite an impressive sea state, and out to the front. So this is our storm ship, and it's set on an inner, and it's a glorious day. I mean, we've gone through the front, and really now what we're picking up is an acceleration from the land of the southeasterly wind. So we're going away from the center of the storm, and we're going fast. So you can see it's a Hank-on storm cell. I was kind of listened to Nin last week, and it's 2,600 square meters. That sail is about 10 square meters. It's a tiny sail. It's the first time we'd put it up actually on the whole trip, and it's set quite close to the mast. You can't really get the idea there, but it's on an inner stay that has to be rigged, and then we hank on the sail, and it's just fantastic. I mean, here it takes a lot of we're quite a stiff boat, and it takes a lot to dig that rail in. And we're doing it under storm sail alone, and we're doing about 7 knots. We've picked up a lee from the islands, so we're not even getting a rough sea state in this image. And we're delighted with ourselves. We're out of jail and we're sailing fast. So okay. And then look, I was just going to leave you with a few shots in Madagascar. So what happened after that shot was we went around the top of Madagascar. Let me show you the image. Went around the top of Madagascar, and there's a famous the headland is called Cap Ambre, and when we rounded it, it was the light actually never. We could see the lighthouse, but it was kind of strange because the light never came on, which is kind of a little bit unsettling almost, because you do like to see the lighthouse there. But we came around the top, and we were both pretty tired after the day, a couple of days before, and we tucked into an anchorage on an island called Nossi and our pals on the Swan, they actually came up and gave us some kind of moral reinforcement, if you like, just to help us out, which was very kind of them, because we were fine, but it was just nice to see some friendly faces. And so yeah, beautiful place. And like the striking, okay, here's an image. Now you see what happened to us. As I say, we had gone back to work for 14 months, and then we actually caught up with a lot of boats. So that's that guy that was to the right of us in Fatuhiva, and again in one of the Tuamotus. That's the Swan behind us, and this is I think that's a Tiana 42 American cruiser. And look, the cool thing about Madagascar is they've got an awful lot of working sail. Like there's so much boats, so many boats, and they're all got these kind of Latin type rigs, and they use them for moving produce, for building materials, for transport between the islands. They're blessed with these fantastic sea breezes, and they everywhere you look. So this was actually in an anchorage in an island called Nossi Bay, and this guy maybe you can see a figure at the bow there, but you can just see the sail, and the spars are just lashed together, and the sails, I don't know how they do it, and that's obviously the shadow of the rigging. And there's the guy. So he came in, ghosted in right beside us, and tried to get onto the berth. And so there he's right beside me. And actually, if I have a look at this, so like you can see, even his blocks are wooden. It's a wooden pulley and a wooden cheeks on that block. Yeah. So just really inventive, really good sailors. So he would have gone in. No, there's obviously no motors in these boats, and they have to, it's their livelihood to get around. So here's again, this is an island called it's called Tanny Kelly. It's off the north of Madagascar again. And you can just see this guy came in, drops his rig. He's got one outrigger there, and he's actually got a pole out this side. But You can see him there now, and then his pal comes in behind him, and they're just out for a day off swimming. And this is another type of boat they have. This is really a canoe. Now it's got a whole load of stuff in the front of it, but it's a canoe. He's got 2 outriggers, one with a float, one that's just free, and then the sails go to that, and he's kind of got these double sprits rig to hold up the sail. And again, like, he would have paddled in and then sailed off, and then just always somebody coming up to ask a question or to see what you're about. And okay, so I looked, there's loads we haven't focused on, but this is a town called Helville in Nossi Bay, and this is the market. And the market, so we would have gone, obviously we go whenever we arrive, we obviously need to get water, we need to get food, and we would have this market. The first time we went, I think it was early afternoon, and there was meat there, but we kind of had to get out and go back the next day first thing in the morning, because by early afternoon it's not great. And then the other curious thing about this island is everybody's got a Red 04. I mean, I never saw it like it. So it's, so obviously great dealership there for those. And again, I'm just going to leave you some images of the sailing that they have there. Oh, hang on. This is called Nazi Comba. These are lemurs, and this island, they're like cats. They're just everywhere, and so they're just hanging out everywhere. And yeah, very cute. And yeah, so we saw those both in this island, Nasi Comba, and then there's an island to the south. Was it Morambi Bay that we went to? So we had a great time. I mean, we loved Madagascar. We'd see a little sailboat there in the distance, but we had a wonderful time there. And yeah, I can see again this guy's fairly clipping along. Actually, it's a very efficient rig and a very simple rig. And yeah, everywhere you look, there's little sailboats. Just beautiful. Yeah. So and again, there's Frank with the Swan, and this guy fairly clipping along. And yeah, so was that it? This is another one. You can see a guy sitting on the outrigger here trying to keep a bit of weight out, and I think there's some animals in that boat. And okay, so Madagascar, this is another thing you see down there, is this baobab tree. It's an enormous tree. And I think that's it. That's it, Will. That was my last shot.
Very nice. Just leave us on a little bit of luxury when we're all
that's it.
Sitting in lockdown life,
Yeah. So like, I mean, yeah. Look, I mean, that's like, it's like a dream to us now, but it was a wonderful experience. And look, if anyone, definitely encourage anyone that is anyway interested to do it. It's not as maybe as reach as you might think. It's really a question of time. That's the issue. You can do it with you can figure out a way to do it.
I mean, I think, like, the mad thing is, we've been here for an hour and a half, and I'd say you've only just scratched the surface with the stories. It's probably never ending, which is incredible. So there's a couple of questions here. I might just pop over to you quickly before we finish up. So Alan Green asked at the start, did you have a large alternator on the engine?
Wow. Well, I did. I replaced the alternator when we
I know, just here. Commodore first. You can take the phone. I've gone. Take it. I don't want to.
What else you got, Will? Is there any more queries or?
Hi everyone. Sorry, it just kicked me out there, but I'm back.
Very good.
So another one was, what was the worst weather you encountered on the trip?
Well, it probably was that. It probably was that storm that kind of 50 knots. I mean, like the bit of, if we were to talk about bad weather, we'd talk about South Africa. That was probably, just in terms of weather, you know, fogs and rain and lightning and wind and sea state. That was pretty, you know, that was pretty bad. And the idea there is that you've got about 1,200 miles to do along the coast, and they kind of get a low pressure system every week, and it's kind of hard to get a window because you know, there's only a few ports. There's only maybe 5 ports along the whole South African coastline, so that was a bit tricky. That sort of 50 knot storm was the worst we were really out sailing in. The highest wind speed we saw was actually in the Med, believe it or not. That was over 70 knots, but we were in Palma in a harbour, and it was fine. We were obviously fine, and yeah, but you know, you don't get a huge preponderance of gales. Probably not much more than here. It's what would it be here? Probably 2% gales or something like that if you're to look at it. So it's not that bad, and you know, like if you're out in the sea, it's actually fine. You can manage it, and as I say, it only rarely went over that up to that kind of 50 knot range. We did have stuff on the Atlantic on the way back. A storm did form in front of us, and we had to. We could see it, and we actually slowed down and headed off to the north for a couple of days, and then came back onto course. And but yeah, it's not that bad. Yeah.
Nice, cool. So we'll have one more question just before we sign off. So, Damien asked, "How did you organize the watch with Henrietta during the long crossings? And what was your favorite meal during sailing journeys?"
Yeah. So the watch system we stuck with was 3 hours, 3 hours on, 3 hours off during the night. So that means both of us did 2 3-hour shifts, and so it was kind of 8 to 11, 11 to 2, 2 to 5, 5 to 8. And then we used to take it easy during the day. If we needed rest, either one of us could you know, take a break during the day. We just, as it, you know, we weren't as strict about actual watches during the day. Obviously somebody would be up, but it depended who wants to do it almost. And but that worked very well. I mean, some people do 4-hour shifts, but 4 hours is a very long time. So I'd kind of go with the 3. And yeah, the favorite meals. Yeah, we like meals, like food becomes a big deal, you know. So we obviously like the fresh fish. Like we did have a few tins. We did can some meat along the way when we left New Zealand, for example, and we had some of that, and that was quite a treat. And yeah, but you know, Henrietta did a lot of baking and bread and pizzas and stuff like that. So good variety, but yeah, very important. Yeah.
Nice, very good. I'll leave with one more, which was, when do you leave for another trip with the kids?
Well, do you know what? I was like, Henrietta should be doing this talk as well. Normally, when we've done this talk, it's normally a bit of a tag team, you know, and pass it over and back between the two of us. So just this format didn't really suit. But yeah, we were just talking about that just over dinner earlier on. You know, like when would we do it, or how would we manage it? And look, we'd love to do it again. It's the short answer, and we're very lucky we did it when we did it. I guess that's the message I'd be saying to anybody out there that, you know, on your under 30 group, it's a superb time to be looking at it. Yeah, but we would like to find a way to do it.
Conor, thank you very much for the time. Oh, sorry, I've lost connection here.
No, you're great. That was my pleasure. Yeah, look, it's a great initiative, Will, and look, I look forward to your next few talks now. And yeah, it's a nice thing to be doing at this time of the year, getting us back into thinking about the you know, the potential the sport has and the fun we can have doing it.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's been great. It's been great to have you and hear your stories. And I'm sure now when we're back in the bar, people will be coming up to you and asking for more detail and more stories here and there.
Yeah, great.
Yes, I think so. Thank you, Conor, and thank you, Will. It was really terrific. I enjoyed it enormously.
Glad you enjoyed it.
Very welcome. Yeah.
Guys, just before we sign up, there's a couple of little things I just wanted to kind of let you all know. So next, as I said, this is actually the penultimate week now. Next week we have the crew from Ssb Delos coming to join us. Now they're I actually haven't looked them up yet, but apparently they're quite the YouTube stars. They have a couple of thousand couple of 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, and they're sailing around the world and having adventures and all that kind of stuff. So that's a big group to be joining us next week. So stay tuned for more info on that. Then also the under 30s have organized a course for navigation using the expedition software, and it's kind of with the aim of training up under 30s in anticipation of the dingle race. Fingers crossed it happens. Whether it does or not is another thing. So that's going to be with Campbell Fields, and that's in a couple of weeks. The exact date, I'll get it for you, but if there's any under 30s interest in that, stay tuned to the Instagram, because we'll put some more information up. That's gonna be on March the 13th. And the last thing is just kind of from the committee side as well, is if you look on the website, and you would have got an email earlier, the Dún Laoghaire Harbour Company, Dún Laoghaire Rathdowne County Council, they employed some consultants to look into the future of the harbour and Dún Laoghaire town and stuff like that, and they've put out a survey for people like us to put our input into it, and that closes on the 28th, I think. So it would be great if you could all hop onto the website. It takes 5 or 10 minutes just to give us your input on where you think the future of the harbour and the town should go, because it's important to get the opinions of the people who use it day to day, like ourselves. So yeah, all that official stuff out of the way. Again, thank you, Conor. Really appreciate it, and we'll hope to see you all again soon.
Very good. Thanks so much, Will.
Thanks, Conor.
Thank you, Conor.
Yeah,
It was brilliant.